I don't know, a few times before. You never know what fixes it. But I will be starting the meeting interpreting, and then I'll try to figure this out when Lisa and I switch.
Gotcha. Okay. I just resent it, so let me know if that works with the resend.
All right. Oh wow, super quick. There it is. Nope, same thing. Please register to join this webinar.
What happens if you register?
How do I do that? It just asked me to put in a name and an email, and I put in that secondary email address and my initials for the name, but then it just keeps cycling back to ask me the same questions.
Right. Okay. I'm going to do something. I'm going to get you registered through actual registry, and then I'll promote you to panelist.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what was happening to me. Babe.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Fain, Commissioner Walkinshaw, Commissioner Graves. Good to see you. John, let me know when you're ready to go. I want to make sure that this issue is addressed before I start. Good afternoon, Commissioner Sands.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you.
You all again so soon.
Commissioners, we're going to take just a few minutes to make sure that our interpretation services are up and ready to go.
Gabriel, that's still not working for me.
No, not working on this side either. Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and maybe we can work on that in a future event.
Okay, when we're ready whenever you are, Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Augustine, Chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission. I would like to welcome everyone to this public outreach meeting, the fifth one of this 2021 redistricting cycle. The topic of discussion today is Congressional District 1 and the legislative districts included within the 1st Congressional District. I'll have more to say about that later, but first, let's kick things off with a video message from the commissioners. Maria?
I'm not getting any sound.
Stand by just a minute. The staff are working on it. I can see in our side functions. I'm the chair of the Washington State Redistricting. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Augustine. I'm the chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission, recently chosen by the 4 voting members of the commission to facilitate and to lead this effort.
Hello, everyone. I'm Commissioner April Sims.
I'm Commissioner Joe Fain.
I'm Commissioner Brady Pinheiro-Walkinshaw.
I'm Commissioner Paul Graves. I'm one of 4 voting members recently appointed by the state legislative leadership of the Washington State Redistricting Commission.
Once a decade, we redraw our congressional and state legislative district boundaries using data the Census Bureau collected last year, reflecting changes made to the population in the last 10 years.
States across the nation handle redistricting in different ways.
In Washington, the state constitution and law establish an independent redistricting commission.
As commission members, we've committed ourselves to a process that is open,
transparent,
and credible.
These maps will belong to all the people of Washington.
With that in mind, we encourage you to help us draw your WA.
The commission will hold virtual public outreach meetings focused on populations residing in each of Washington's 10 congressional districts,
as well as additional outreach meetings to be scheduled soon.
Live Spanish and American Sign Language interpretations will be available for each of these meetings.
With your unique insights about the community, we will work to ensure a credible redistricting process, resulting in maps reflecting fair representation for all Washingtonians.
Please take part. After all, it's really your map.
So come help us draw your WA.
Help us draw our WA.
Come help us draw your WA.
So please help us draw your WA.
Thank you, Maria. To those of you from the public who are joining us today, welcome again. It is my goal as chair to facilitate a process that is as participatory, fair, and equitable as possible. I will endeavor to engage communities across Washington as fully as I can and to hear and address your concerns and requests. Throughout our tenure as commissioners, we will hear public comments that are important. We will listen to you. I will do my best to synthesize those comments, and we will endeavor to respond to you as we are able. Still, it is possible that you will bring forward in your public comments ideas, requests, and injustices that we may not be able to address. We will certainly deliberate on the issues where we do have jurisdiction. Where we don't, I will do my best to refer you to those who may be able to respond to you more effectively. I want to begin by reviewing the purpose and values of the commission. Together as a commission, we have agreed on the following: to provide an open, transparent, credible process that is grounded in statute and where all voices are welcome and there's access for everyone. To conduct ourselves with transparency, respect, and civility, where commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith. And to meet the deadline outlined by law and to produce the best possible maps for all Washingtonians. You may be aware that because of the pandemic, the redistricting cycle promises to be a challenging one. While we should have received the data from the Census Bureau by April 1st of this year, we don't expect to have that data until late August. Nonetheless, in April, the Census Bureau did deliver to the President and the nation the apportionment data, which told us which states would gain seats in the US Congress and Electoral College and which would not. Based on that data, we know that in the last decade, the population of our state grew by 14.6% and added approximately 1 million residents. Despite that population growth, it did not change the number of congressional seats we are entitled to. Washington will continue to have 10 representatives in the US House of Representatives. Based on the population growth in the state, our job as the Redistricting Commission is to distribute as equally as is practical the population among 10 congressional districts and 49 legislative districts. Based on the apportionment data provided in April, Washington has a population of 7,705,281 residents as of April 1st, 2020. Therefore, we need to draw 10 new congressional districts that are compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 770,528 residents. and 49 new legislative districts that are also compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 157,251 residents. Statute also instructs us, as practically as we can, to minimize drawing district lines that cut through counties, municipalities, or communities of interest. And the Commission is committed to applying these principles while we try to create equally proportional districts. So while we know that the overall population of the state, according to the census, we don't yet know the particulars of percentage growth across neighborhoods, towns, cities, and counties. State population estimates of the last 10 years do give us a relatively good idea of where our 7.7 million residents live and which districts will need to get larger in area to add more residents, and which districts will need to get smaller in order to shed residents. And as we add or subtract neighborhoods from one district, it will cause the need to make corresponding adjustments in the neighboring districts. To show you broadly, Maria, can you please put up the first map? Thank you. This map shows Washington State and its 10 congressional districts. The darker the brown colors, the more the district needs to grow in size, and the darker the teal colors, the more the district needs to shrink in size. So, regarding the topic of discussion today, the first congressional district, the map indicates that it currently has more than the needed 770,000 residents to make it proportional. It will need to give up some of its residents. Now, next slide, please, Maria. The first congressional district includes parts of legislative districts 42, 40, 10, 39, 44, and 5. Based on state population estimates, we can see that the 42nd, the 39th, the 44th, and the 5th have more than the 157,000 residents in the districts. They'll have to give up some residents. While the 40th and the 10th have less than the needed 157,000, they will have to grow to absorb some more residents. Next slide, please, Maria. Here is a zoomed in map of the southern portion of the district. Here you can see that the first congressional district also includes parts of legislative districts 32, 1, and 48. Based on the state population estimates, we can see that the 48th and the 1st have more than 157,000 residents in their districts, meaning they will have to lose some of their residents, while the 32nd has less than the needed 157,000, meaning it will have to grow to absorb more residents. Thank you, Maria. Well, that's just a brief overview of the challenges that your Redistricting Commission faces this year. In essence, commissioners have to create a new puzzle out of the state. And the puzzle pieces have to contain nearly exactly the same population. As we make one puzzle piece smaller, its adjacent puzzle pieces will need to absorb those additional areas, meaning that every time a boundary is moved, it creates a cascade of changes in surrounding districts. So the purpose of our meeting today is to listen to your input about your community and how to ensure that the districts are fairly balanced in terms of population, but also respect shared community interests. The commission may not be able to meet every interest, but as commissioners try to weigh the trade-offs inherent in the process, your opinions are welcome and important. This afternoon, we have 30 individuals who have signed up to testify. We're going to invite individuals in groups of 4 to testify. Each individual will have 2 minutes to offer their comment. After 4 people have testified, we will see if the commissioners have any questions for the 4 testifiers, and then we will move to the next group. With that summary, Sean, let's begin. Please call the first panel.
Good afternoon, commissioners. For our first panel, we have Jerry Williams, Jeffrey Almeida, Karen Crowley, and Bill Cooper. We will begin with Jerry Williams.
Thank you, Sean.
Jerry, if you're able to turn on your video and begin your testimony. Jerry, are you able to turn on your video or audio?
I don't have any comment. I'm just participating to listen, if that's okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
We
you
will-
very much.
Jeffrey Almeida, if you want to begin your testimony. I see your video's on. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Almeida. I've been a Democratic PCO in Kenmore for the better part of the last 8 years. The first thing I would call out is that it appears that the maps you were using in the presentation a few moments ago were from the 2000 redistricting and not the 2010 redistricting, because since 2010, Kenmore has been in the 46th, not the 32nd. So that may be something to reevaluate. And that kind of comes to my whole point. Kenmore as a community of interest is very tightly coupled with Bothell in terms of school district, in terms of hospital district, and in terms of economy. And during the 2010 redistricting, where Kenmore had been part of the 32nd along with Lake Forest Park and Shoreline, Kenmore was shifted to the Kenmore and Lake Forest Park were shifted to the 46th, which is a rather odd elongated district that essentially stretches from my house at the north end of Kenmore all the way down to the Bryant neighborhood just north of the University of Washington in Seattle. That creates very large disparate opinions within the district, where the 800-pound gorilla of Seattle tends to bludgeon in some ways the suburban interests north of 145th Street. So my first comment to this would be, please, when trying to redraw legislative districts, try and keep Kenmore and Bothell together. And second would be that as a general rule, if at all possible, keeping 145th Street as a hard boundary at the northern edge of Seattle on the west side of Lake Washington between districts would help to essentially protect the views of the suburbs relative to the larger and denser and more urban city south of 145th Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sean, if you would call the second panelist.
Yes, Karen Crowley, I see your video is on. Please begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Karen Crowley. I live in the city of Snohomish, the 1st Congressional District, the 44th Legislative District. I'm here today to ask and advocate for an idea that's quite simple and maybe optimistic. As you make decisions on where to draw lines, please disregard party completely. I'm asking that you take seriously the directive that our voting district maps must be drawn purposely to favor or neither to favor or discriminate against any political party or group. And the statistics in this regard are interesting. In our state, according to a 2018 report in the Washington State Wire, 43% of voters consider themselves independents. I recognize that you are political appointees working within a political process. I urge you to approach the process from a nonpartisan point of view. Moreover, I ask that you give weighted consideration to the requirement to encourage electoral competition. Creating or sustaining safe, non-competitive districts creates invisible voters. And when people become invisible for any reason, they become resentful, polarization increases, distrust in government grows. But I'm an idealist. I believe in the democratic process, as do you. So from my perspective, democracy works best when we encourage and listen to a diversity of voices. So let's create districts that are raucous, rowdy, mixed, and stirred to the extent possible that contain voters of every economic bracket, education level, racial and ethnic background. Districts where the power lies with the voters, where voters choose their representatives, not the other way around. You've many decisions to make in creating fair, competitive maps. Preserving incumbents or power or party should not be a deciding factor. Preserving democracy should. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much. We're thankful for your time. Sean, will you please call the next panelist?
Absolutely, Chair. Our last panelist will be Bill Cooper, if you want to begin your testimony.
Thanks very much for having me. And Karen pretty much said what I was going to say, other than one quick other point that I'd like to make. is that when redistricting has occurred, we've seen precincts split in many cases. That type of boundary development really creates burden on the precinct committee officers, the legislative district chairs, and the county parties. And so that would be something to really consider is don't, if you can, don't split precincts. And that saves us a lot of burden. And I want to echo Karen's comments about partisanship. It is very, very critical that we balance the approach politically in all the congressional districts, which obviously affect the LDs and the precincts as well. So best of luck to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. So I now am going to turn to the commissioners and ask if you have questions for our panelists or comments. All right, seeing none, I want to thank the panelists for choosing to be here with us today and excuse the panel. Sean, please call them.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next panel is going to be Nathaniel Block, Ann Shellhorn, Tom Colon, and then Petri Sharidar. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. If we can start with Nathaniel. Nathaniel, can you please begin your testimony? You're still muted.
My apologies, having some technical problems. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, for letting me speak today. My name is Nathaniel Block. I live in Mount Vernon in the 1st Congressional District, 40 Legislative District, and I serve as a PCO for the Skagit County Democrats and as their interim vice chair. What I ask when you look at your maps today, particularly for a county like Skagit, which has been divided over the last 10 years into 3 legislative districts, is to try to keep it as much together as possible, as well as trying to keep the urban areas together and the rural areas together. For those of us that are in the urban areas, we have much more in common with our urban neighbors than we do with our rural neighbors. I hear the same from many of our rural neighbors that are in more of the urban districts as well. They are concerned, as some of the previous speakers have said, that their voices are not always heard when they're in urban areas, but they live in a farming community. And I've heard the same from those that live in places like Burlington and Cedar Woolley, where their legislative district is much more with a rural area, and they think their voices are silenced as well. I ask that you consider making sure that those type of areas are together so all voices can be heard. Additionally, Skagit County is blessed to have numerous First Nations within our county, but some of them have been divided as well over the last 10 years, even amongst some of their own tribes. I ask that when you are considering the maps, that you also try to make sure that our Native communities are together as well, so that their voices can be heard and they do not lose the voices that have been taken from them over hundreds of years, that they are able to have a strong voice and are able to speak as one with their whole tribe and able to speak to the same legislators. Thank you very much for your time, and I know that you're doing extremely important work. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, if you would please call the next testifier.
Absolutely. Tom, I see your video's on if you want to begin your testimony. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just be brief. I didn't actually come prepared to testify. I thought I was going to observe and kind of see what's going on. My only comment isn't that relevant to the commissioners now, but I'd like to see them replaced by software. I think the calls we've had for people to have said, be nonpartisan, be democratic. It seems to me with humans appointed by political parties, that will never happen. And what we need to do is program software with the criteria. If we want the smallest, most compact districts, that can be done by a program. If we want to respect certain urban and rural boundaries, that can be done by program. So I would echo the calls of people for you commissioners to be as fair about democracy instead of party as possible. But I'm very skeptical, as the previous speaker was, or the first woman that spoke said she was skeptical. I think I'm even more skeptical than her and less optimistic. But so eventually, I'd like to get an open software source project together that would just eliminate commissioners. So that's my thought that I'll share. But otherwise, I'm here to observe.
Thank you. We appreciate your insights. Sean, if you'll call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely. The last individual on our panel will be Preeti. If you don't mind beginning your testimony.
Thank you very much. I also wasn't really planning to testify. I just come here to observe, but since I have the opportunity, I will talk about two things. One of the previous speakers had mentioned, I think it is very important for as the new maps are drawn for the First Nations to be kept intact. I have heard that a couple different places, and I do serve on the board of the Washington Conservation Voters, and that's very important for us to respect that. So I hope that is taken into consideration. My other point, I work my day job with the city of Renton, and I oversee our legislative and intergovernmental relations role. And one of our challenges has been that as a city, we have, even as we currently speak, the 11th, 33rd, 37th, and 41st districts, and a little bit of the 5th and 47th. And this is currently the situation. And what happens is, though we have a wonderful rapport and relationship with all our legislators, sometimes, they are fragmented in the fact that they have a small part of the city, in their responsibility, but it's shared with other jurisdictions. So we're hoping that this is an opportunity in terms of the new mapping to have fewer legislators with greater responsibility for the city. And, this may not be unique for one area. This may be opportunities that can be, might be shared in other parts of the.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Sharda, that you were cut off. You can submit your full testimony via email to us. I now want to ask the commissioners if you have comments or questions for the panelists. All right. Seeing none, I'd like to thank the panelists for your time coming to speak with us today, and you are excused. And I'll ask Sean to please call the next panel.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next panel is going to be Charles Ivory, Alan Chapman, Joan Yim, and Raina Connell. We will begin with Charles. If you're able to turn on your video and begin your testimony, please.
And unmute. We good?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity that you've made this a public opportunity for conversation. My wife and I relocated to Mount Vernon, Washington just 7 months ago. So we're very new to the state, coming from New Jersey. So we traveled a long distance to get here. We're very interested in the questions you're reviewing right now about redistricting, and very much we echo the comments made earlier by Karen. I would add that we are very concerned that our state not become consumed in some of the hateful gerrymandering we see occurring around our country, and urge the panel to be very independent in their thinking. I don't know the extent to which you can balance the peoples who are represented in a particular congressional district. I think that's very difficult. What I wouldn't want to see are the strange shapes and disgraceful reorganizing of districts to be unbalanced in the way they represent one group, party, or another. So thank you again very much for opening this process. I wish you well. We'll be watching and hoping for the very best in terms of the democratic process on this. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. And Sean, if you'd call the next panelist, please.
Alan Chapman, I see your video's on. If you can unmute and begin your testimony, please. Thank you.
Yes, good day. I am a resident of rural Whatcom County, and I guess my primary interest is to keep the rural interest aligned in the best way possible and make it as apolitical as possible. That is all I have to say. I'll follow the process through its full extent.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. Sean, will you please call the next panelist?
Absolutely. Joan Yim, if you can start your testimony, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Hi,
Welcome.
my name is Joan Yim, and I live in unincorporated Snohomish County in a little slice of land between Bothell and Mill Creek. And I sometimes feel like I'm kind of in a no man's land. And what I would urge the commission to do is to look at these kind of urban or suburban areas that are unincorporated and link them up to the nearest community that they're comfortable with. I mean, not comfortable with, but just are kind of just like physically attached to. I guess I'm not sure I'm saying that exactly clearly enough, but the other, I think this relates to the real point I want to make, which is these natural definitions of boundaries. While in CD1, you've stuck pretty much to the county boundaries as your boundaries for the district. There are areas where I would like to see those cities that are currently divided, like Everett, be perhaps joined together. I've heard that from a number of my friends. So I just wanted to pass those two things on about looking out for the unincorporated areas and for the boundaries that might divide communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We sure appreciate your input. And Sean, if you would call the next panelist, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our last panelist is going to be Rena Connell. If you can turn on your video and begin your testimony. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm Rena Connell, a resident of the 1st Legislative District at Echo Lake, a semi-rural community on a kind of land island, northeast of Woodinville in southeast Snohomish County. All residents use Echo Lake Road as our only road bridge in and out for our entire community of more than 3,500 people. In the past 2 years, we've created a community group whose mission is to build a rural community that is safe, strong, resilient, and inclusive through neighborhood connections and community services. Our board, of which I'm a part, is working to develop community unity. Precinct lines, as currently drawn, have created one more barrier to our mission. Past districting decisions split our 6 precincts between 2 legislative districts. 5 precincts are in LD1. 1 precinct, Richland, is stuck in LD39, and their current senator lives in Cedro-Woolley, 1.5 hours away. We need your help to politically unify our communities so we can advocate together for disaster preparedness should a devastating earthquake destroy our only road. My specific request is for the commission to unify Echo Lake community, including Richland precinct, into the 1st LD, keeping boundaries contiguous. Unified, we could more easily politically work for the common benefit of our residents. Our last thought from our semi-rural island, Not all islands are surrounded by water. We sincerely thank you for the hard work you do to be fair and just. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I would now like to offer our commissioners the opportunity to ask questions or make comments. Okay. Seeing no requests for the opportunity to ask a question or to comment, I would like to thank the panel for your time. Thank you for being with us today, and excuse this panel. Thank you. And Sean, if you would call the next panel, please.
Absolutely. Our next panel and last panel that we have for this meeting is Christine Conhart, Angela Barney, Gary Jensen, and Kathleen Strong. Christine, if you can start your testimony.
Okay.
Welcome.
So, hi. So I'm Christine Conhart, Mount Vernon, Washington. So I'm in the 10th Legislative District and Congressional District 1. And one of my concerns is that the city of Mount Vernon is divided in different legislative districts. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you say the city name one more time? I apologize. I couldn't quite hear it.
I'm sorry. Sir. Okay. So the city of Mount Vernon is divided into different legislative districts. The 10th comes in as a wedge right into the middle of our city, almost triangular in shape. And so we are not unified. And the other concern I have is communities of interest. There's a large Latinx community in Skagit County, and a lot of residents concentrated around Mount Vernon, Burlington, and Cedar Woolley. Their districts are divided, so they lose voice quite a bit that way. So I would ask that to be a concern as well.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here. You cut out a little bit, so I wonder if you'd be willing to just write us a paragraph and send it to our comment to make sure that we could fully capture your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem. We appreciate you being here, and I think our staff will probably be able to get most of it, but just in case, we would love to have your written comments as well. Thank you. Sean, if you would call the next panelist, please.
Absolutely. Angela Burney is going to be next. If you can turn on your video and begin your testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes.
My name is Angela Burney. I am the mayor of the city of Redmond, and I just, first of all, wanted to thank you all for the work that you're doing. We are in the 1st Legislative District and are extremely happy that we only have one congressional district to manage, to be in, as well as in the 48th and 45th LDs for the state. And that also has been working for us just fine. The only thing I would ask of you, in looking at the maps that you presented, you were completely missing the 45th LD in your map. So if it's possible for us to get updated maps with the appropriate jurisdiction, so we can kind of see the ways that you're thinking that you might adjust things, since I noticed that you had different levels of color denoting which LDs needed to grow or shrink. So that's my only ask, but once again, thank you for all the work that you're doing, and I really appreciate the challenge that you're facing as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your input. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker will be Gary Jensen. If you can turn on your video and begin your testimony, please. Well, I see Kathleen Strong's video is on, so we will jump over to Kathleen real quick and we'll try to get Gary's video and audio on. Kathleen, if you want to begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Strong, and I reside in unincorporated Snohomish County, just south of Everett. I am in the 44th Legislative District, and I am just hoping that the commission will continue to look at the way counties are split by districts, taking into account the previous testimony of how the 39th is split between 3 counties. It just has a few very little bit into King County, and it is set into such a large part of the map. And there's just it's hard for the representatives to really know their constituents when they're split into such a large area. And I just hope that we not look at party lines of Democrat, Republican, or other, but that we really look at what's best for the constituents in these areas, like what will best represent the people of these areas, and how we can think as a community within a county, within cities, within our real communities. I enjoy being in the 44th because we're all in Snohomish County. We all have at least that. We may be split between different cities and different communities, but we have our county in common. We have a county.
Thank you. Sorry that your clock ran down there. Of course, we would love to see your written comments if you'd like to email those to us. And Sean, I wonder if Gary Jensen is available.
I have prompted Gary several times. I'm getting no response from video or audio, Chair.
Okay, terrific. All right. So with that, what I want to do is ask the commissioners, do you have questions or comments for the panelists? All right, seeing none, I would like to thank the panelists. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with us today. I'd like to excuse the panel. And I would also like to offer our commissioners an opportunity to make concluding remarks if you wish. So I'll look for your hand. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Graves.
Sure. Well, thanks everybody very much for coming out and taking part of your Saturday to come meet with us and to tell us what you think about your legislative and congressional districts. I think we're all really appreciative of it. We're taking notes on everything you said, and I'm confident that with a lot of good public input, we can end up with maps that fairly represent Washington State. So thanks so much for taking the time to contribute.
Thank you. Commissioner Sims.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Commissioner Graves said. A deep appreciation for the community for showing up today, taking their time, putting their energy into providing their thoughtful testimony, and we look forward to incorporating that feedback into our work moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Fain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to thank the panelists and everyone for showing up today. It's those unique little geographies like the unincorporated islands and those areas that are only accessible by one road and things like that, that commissioners who aren't from that area may not have any idea that those situations exist. And so that's why this public outreach is so important. And that's why your participation today is so great, and appreciate everyone coming out. And Mayor Bernie, good to see you. And thanks everyone for taking the time.
Thank you. Commissioner Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Commissioner Augustine. Just echoing the gratitude of my colleagues. This was really useful, and there was a lot of great specifics that I think will be extremely helpful. Just would encourage others that you know who have interest in this to submit their written comments, to reach out, to participate in future public meetings. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you. And I would like to extend my thanks to all the people who are working together to accomplish the work of the commission, and especially to those who helped bring this public meeting to you today. So I'd like to thank those who have provided American Sign Language and Spanish language interpretation, our court reporter who is compiling the record, the Washington State Redistricting Commission staff, who put so much time and effort into making sure that this runs smoothly, also the Commission caucus staff, and many more. Thank you, members of the public, for spending part of your Saturday with us. And I want to genuinely thank the commissioners for your time and for your leadership. I recognize that the public sees you just a tiny fraction of the time that you actually commit to doing this work. Thank you for doing this important work on behalf of the residents of Washington. We appreciate you. This meeting is now adjourned, and have a great Saturday.